BBC, U.S. urges Israel to stop shooting at UN peacekeepers in Lebanon. It's like, what are you Al Jazeera or are you the BBC? What is up, friends? Today we're going to be talking about why the UN is an utter failure. All right, let's not beat around the bush or anything. We'll get right into it. So the UN, the United Nations Peacekeeping Force, is under scrutiny and fire by the Israeli government, and they're currently firing back as well. The UN, the United Nations Peacekeeping, all right, this is a sort of like an army that can't really do anything, that is funded and run by the UN. They've been sitting on the border of Israel and Lebanon for decades now. I've personally run into them many times, and I'm going to be showing you guys some video evidence of videos that I've made with them in the past. But here is the peacekeeping mission on the website. So let's just read a little bit about what their actual goals are. The UN peacekeeping helps countries navigate the difficult path from conflict to peace. We have unique strengths, including legitimacy, burden sharing, and an ability to deploy troops and police from around the world, integrating them with civilian peacekeepers to address a range of mandates set by the UN Security Council and General Assembly. Sounds good, all right? It sounds right. And if you look here on their map, you can see and zoom into the Middle East. You'll get to Israel and see where the UN peacekeeping force is on the border of Lebanon and Israel. Their subsidiary force is called the UNIFIL. UNIFIL, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. Okay, they also have another one that sits in Syria, I believe. This is United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, and they're right by Syria. You also have one inside of Israel. They're trying on paper to bring stability to the Middle East. Let's just take a look real quick at what has actually been accomplished. So here is footage coming from the IDF in southern Lebanon. Okay. Now, there was a resolution signed decades ago that meant that the UN had to enforce the idea that Hezbollah would not be able to build any infrastructure past the Litani River. What do you have right here? This is a tunnel shaft, 100 meters from a UN base. Okay. Clearly evident that Hezbollah has been working in cahoots with the UN to construct bases and army facilities right under the eyes of the UN and right on the border of Israel, where they're not allowed to be. So here you have footage of munitions, the tunnel shafts themselves. There is tons of evidence coming out right now proving that the UN has been incapable of stopping Hezbollah. Now, again, let's read a little bit about the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon is a United Nations peacekeeping mission established on 19th of March, 1978. By United States Security Resolutions 425 and 426 and several further resolutions 2006 to confirm Hezbollah's demilitarization, support Lebanese army operations against insurgents, and weapons smuggling, confirming Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon in order to ensure that the government of Lebanon would restore its effective authority to the area. Has that happened? We are in 2024. Has the Lebanese army and the Lebanese government secured anything in this area? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What's the proof? Over 100,000 Israeli civilians having to vacate their homes for over a year now because since October 8th, Hezbollah has been firing thousands of munitions at innocent civilians, both Arabs, Jews, Palestinians, Jews, Muslims. It does not matter. This is what they have been doing. Yesterday alone, a suicide drone was blown up in the central portion of Israel in civilian areas with zero regard to civilian life. Let's further read about what UNIFIL, or UNIFIL, the official Twitter account of the United States Interim Force in Lebanon, which at this point is so very clearly run by terrorists. I mean, like, you can see the way that they are tweeting. It's like if they aren't terrorists themselves, they're very much terrorists aligned. Okay, they've been on a long string of updates on how the IDF has been sort of committing war crimes or, targeting UNIFIL. So you can go and read, and here, this is from a friend of mine, Jonathan El-Khouri. You had one job to push Hezbollah back from the border, and to make sure Resolution 1701 and 1559 are pushed through. You failed. This is absolutely true. Absolutely true. And we're going to get into we're going to show you guys the proof right now of why these people are terrorist aligned at this point. So no word about Hezbollah firing thousands of rockets at Israeli civilians, but on October 6th, they say, UNIFIL is deeply concerned by the recent activities by the IDF immediately adjacent to the mission's position, southeast at Maroun al-Ras, Sector West, inside Lebanese territory. The IDF has been reportedly informed of this ongoing situation through regular channels. No word about the fact that they are firing currently at civilians. Statement: this morning, UNIFIL's Nakura headquarters was affected by explosions for the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured after 2 explosions occurred close to an observation tower. 1 injured peacekeeper was taken to the hospital in Tyre, while the second is being treated in Nakura. I don't know. Maybe don't have your UN bases close to terrorists. Or maybe do your fucking job. Your job was to stop the terrorists from building infrastructure near UN bases in this entire area. But you failed at this. So I want to read this. I want to relay this whole chain that they've been updating on, okay? Because I find just the way that they're going about explaining the situation very appalling and kind of hilarious. UNIFIL statement. Early this morning, peacekeepers at a UN position in Ramya observed 3 platoons of IDF soldiers crossing the blue line into Lebanon. Again, you didn't enforce any structure in the blue line, so we have to cross it. We have to enter Lebanon to keep the peace, because you are not keeping the peace. At around 4:30 a.m., while peacekeepers were in shelters, 2 IDF Merkava tanks destroyed the position's main gate and forcibly entered the position. They requested multiple times that the base turns out its lights. The tanks left about 45 minutes later after UNIFIL protested through liaison mechanism, saying the IDF presence was putting peacekeepers in danger. So leave. You have not enforced in over 30 years. You did not enforce what you needed to do. You have not kept the peace. You failed at keeping the peace. You failed at enforcing your own resolution. Leave. It's now time for the actual adults in the room to take care of business. At around 6:40 a.m., peacekeepers at the same position reported firing several rounds of 100 meters north, which emitted smoke. Despite putting on protective masks, 15 peacekeepers suffered effects, including skin irritation and gastrointestinal reactions after the smoke entered the camp. The peacekeepers are receiving treatment. It's like the most frustrating thing in the world to read. It sounds like a bunch of children. I'm like, you guys are clearly not trained for this. You're not taking any action against the terrorists in the region. You're not going to fight with the IDF. Vacate the premises. Don't put yourself at risk. Leave. Get out of there. You're not doing a good job. You haven't done a good job. Nobody is safer because of you. In addition, yesterday, IDF soldiers stopped a critical UNIFIL logistical movement near Mais El Jebel, denying it passage. The critical movement could not be completed. Maybe that's because terrorists are using your bases and your vehicles to infiltrate the IDF. They did it in Gaza with Hamas and Palestinian civilians. They're doing it now in the same exact manner. And we're supposed to just cover for you? We're supposed to just be okay with it? No, screw that and screw you. The UN is failing on every single level. On every single level. Now, we have more proof. If the proof that I've been reading for you guys is not enough, this is from Douglas Murray. Okay, it's an opinion piece on the New York Post. The UN peacekeeping troops failing Israel as Hezbollah creates terror tunnels right under their noses. Now, let's just talk about this for a moment. If for 1 second we're supposed to sell the idea that the UN is not in cahoots directly with Hezbollah, you've got another thing coming, okay? There is no way, just the same way that the UN in Gaza didn't know, UNRWA in Gaza didn't somehow know that Hamas was in cahoots with them or working with them. Let's not be children about this matter. Let's be adults about this. You don't build tunnels. You don't bring missile silos into civilian homes in southern Lebanon and weapons caches as far as the eye can see, with the UN being oblivious to that. The UN clearly knows what is going on here and what has been going on here for decades, and they chose to not do anything about it because they have a negative bias towards Israel and probably want to see the destruction of the country. Here you go. This is proof with Douglas Murray in the picture. United Nations Observation Tower. A Hezbollah tunnel, just a few meters away. This is just 100 meters from a UN peacekeeping base and observation point. You could see it very, very, very clearly in this image. It doesn't get any clearer than this, okay? Here's the entrance to the tunnel shaft. You can see here a Hezbollah tunnel shaft. Here's more of what that looks like. So as it poses a question, after all, what Irish or Sri Lankan soldiers is going to put their lives at risk to enforce a mere UN resolution or do anything to protect the state of Israel from Iran-backed terrorists? The answer is nothing. Douglas Murray is absolutely correct. Now, I have my own personal proof of this. Here's more. You can see the munitions inside of a Hezbollah camp in southern Lebanon, which, again, according to the UN, they're not supposed to be operating in. So we're seeing a massive failure on the end of UN. Again, this is the second time in this conflict that we're seeing a massive failure. Now, I have my own proof, okay? This is a video I made back in 2017 when I was traveling here in Israel. I was visiting my uncle in the north of Israel. There is a mountain called Har Bental, or Mount Bental, which is a strategic mountain that played part during the Israeli capture of the Golan Heights. Okay, on top of this mountain, there are several UN peacekeeping forces that are tented out here, and they keep observation between Israel and Syria. Now, while here, you can see the footage that I was getting. This is what this actually looks like. This is my own footage. This is something that I filmed. You have people here. One of them was from Estonia. I think one of them was from Norway or France. You have the two soldiers here, and they're just standing on there, observing, just looking. And they walk around. They flirt with women. They just go about their day, dilly-dallying about. And this is a video clip of me explaining what I was actually witnessing. Now, I'll explain the conversation, in essence, what I was doing. And here they are taking away the tent. In essence, they're there to observe violations of international law on both sides. When is the last time you've ever heard the UN condemn Syria or Lebanon or Palestine for their visceral crimes against humanity on every single level? I'm talking about the oppression of women, the oppression of LGBTQ folk, the oppression of people who don't subscribe to the idea of being an Arab or Muslim. Now, I'm just talking to you baseline. They don't condemn them on those massive baseline effects, right? You think for one moment that these guys are going to be condemning them on what's going on in the border? Look at them. They're pulling up their tents. They are completely unqualified to be there. And that's why for the last 30 years, you've had these people sitting on the border, keeping the peace, and it's cumulated to what's going to break out to a massive regional war. Instead of actually enforcing international law by force, working in conjunction with the IDF to enforce international law, they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And when I asked them what's going on, they said, we're looking for violations on the Israeli side. So you see that there is nowhere to go with this. Now, I also wanted to take a look real quick at some of the way that the media is actually presenting this massive failure. So the Times of Israel, I would say unbiased. I mean, they're obviously pro-Israel, but reporting on, in a positive manner. Netanyahu, UN must withdraw South Lebanon peacekeepers from combat zones. Absolutely. You failed your mission. You didn't keep the peace. Now you have to vacate the premises. You have to let the adults do the job that they need to do. You cannot be there anymore. Okay? That's a totally rational thing to request. BBC, U.S. urges Israel to stop shooting at UN peacekeepers in Lebanon. It's like, what are you Al Jazeera or are you the BBC? What do you mean? These people failed. We have unequivocal proof. I have pictures right here of UN bases, all right, UN watchtowers with Hezbollah tunnels right under them. If you are the UN, you are funded by every single country on this planet. Every sovereign nation buys into this. Billions upon billions of dollars are going into you. You must have some element of sophisticated measure to be able to tell that a Hezbollah tunnel is being dug under your freaking watchtower. Can you report it with a little bit more finesse? Can you try to keep the anti-Israel bias a little bit less clear? Is it possible? Clearly not. Not from the BBC, at least. Israeli minister denounces UN peacekeepers as fighting rages. True. 40 countries strongly condemn Israeli attacks on UN peacekeepers. This is from politico.eu. Israeli attacks on US peacekeepers. At this point, the UN is in cahoots with the terrorists of the Islamic regime. The Islamic regime and its proxies from Iran and all its proxies around the Middle East at this point are working in conjunction with UNRWA and UNIFIL. I mean, they are one and the same. One and the same. Unbelievable the way that this is being reported. And then you wonder why Jewish people, and yes, I say Jewish people. This isn't me saying, I'm not going to sit here and cry anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. But you wonder why Jewish people are in danger worldwide. You wonder why Jewish people don't feel safe. You wonder why Israelis are not safe worldwide. It's not because we're going in and conquering land. It's because you set a baseline UN resolution. You employed a peacekeeping force here for decades and didn't do anything about actually enforcing the peace. You did not accomplish the goal, and then you're scrutinizing us for trying to enforce peace of our sovereign nation? That's insanity. That's absolutely crazy. We're living in a crazy zone. All right, Netanyahu, let's read a little bit of this article. UN must withdraw South Lebanon peacekeepers from combat zones. Now, this is a common allegation. I'm not going to give exact sources for this because I can't. I'm also not a journalist, so I don't have to. Take this as whatever you want. Take it with a grain of rice. I know many soldiers, okay? I know many soldiers that have worked in southern Lebanon, that have worked on the northern borders of Israel, that have directly been in combat with Hezbollah. I have family who lives up there. I've been there. I used to live up there, okay? I've had multiple confirmations that they've been using these UN trucks. Hezbollah has been using these UN vehicles to drive around all willy-nilly, all right? From what I understood, the way that it works is they come up to the UN officers, they hold them at gunpoint, they take their vehicles, and they drive around with them doing different things. It's an absolute mess out here. It's an absolute mess in the Middle East, okay? Absolute mess. UNRWA, UNIFIL, the UN are not helping in the slightest. Here's my message to the UN. You want peace? Vacate the premises. Let the adults in the room take back control and do what they need to do to get their country to its sovereign borders again. Have a problem with that? Get in the way. You'll suffer the consequences. We can't help you because you didn't help us when we needed you. So now, get out of the way. Vacate the premises. You aren't helping anybody. That's all I have to say about it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by going to thetravelingclat.com. A link is in the description. Buy some beautiful merchandise, just like these graphic tees. I'm wearing one of them right now. You can see I got my little Dodo logo right here. I'm wearing this one, the Where You Going shirt. But we've got a bunch of cool, different graphic designs, limited t-shirts. Thank you all to all the Patreon members who help make these videos possible, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, Clats.
If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to monetarily support the channel. Some of the best ways to support me happen to be PayPal, buy me a coffee, or joining our Patreon community. Links to them can be found in the pinned comments or the description of every one of my videos. Joining my Patreon community gives you access to exclusive content and the chance to talk to me on our Discord server. I also go live almost every day here on YouTube. And after my live streams, me and my patrons from Patreon head over to our Discord server to an exclusive after-party hangout. Your support is the only way that I can keep creating the content that you love watching for me. Thank you.